Super Rugby Power Rankings for week number 4. Apologies, they are a day late. Day job has been super busy, but my boss is back next week, thankfully, so hopefully that'll ease things off a little bit. Not that my day job should get in the way of this stuff, but hey, things happen from time to time. So let's go through the power rankings. I think for the most part, I'm pretty happy with them. There's a lot less in terms of sharp rises or drops because we're getting into the point where we've got enough games to really get a feel for where the season is at. But we'll go through them. 15th, off the bye, the Waratahs. Kind of no surprise they are there. At the bottom, they haven't won a game. At least they didn't lose this week. They had the bye, so yeah. Bit of rest, bit of resetting, and they will face the Lions in Sydney this week. So both teams off the bye. It'll be interesting to see which team comes out more improved, because neither has been great, but it's fair to say the Waratahs have been worse. Next, the Bulls, also winless are the Bulls. They lost to the Blues, which is generally never a good thing. It was close, so we don't take too much away from them for that, but it was still a home loss, and you can't be losing to the Blues. So they are down one spot. They could certainly use a win. They are at home again this week against the Jaguares. That's a tough game because that's a South African Conference team which is looking to dominate along with the Stormers. So if the Bulls are going to get this season underway, it probably needs to be this coming week. And the Jaguares have looked good, but not maybe last season good as yet. Next, the Sunwolves coming back from a pretty hefty loss against the Reds. It didn't get much worse. That one, that was a proper hiding. I think that's the first one we've seen in Super Rugby this year where it was just, not the kind of result that draws people to the game. I mean, sure, if you're a Reds fan, that was enjoyable to see your team scoring a bunch of tries, but yeah, it's just like seeing a big kid beating up on a little kid. So neither of those teams was doing that well going into the week. At least the Sunwolves had the one win, but now the Reds have got their win, and the Sunwolves are down 4 spots. Next, the Rebels, and perhaps a bit concerningly, this is 3 Australian Conference teams in the bottom row. The Rebels, they lost again. It's to the Sharks. It was at home, the home away from home in Ballarat, but still, it's a home loss. It wasn't all bad, but it wasn't a bonus point loss. It was just a plain old loss. So yeah, the Rebels season at this point, either they're going to mirror what they did last season, like in reverse, where they're going to start poorly and then finish the season strong. But the last couple of seasons, they've started strong and finished poorly. So if they're just going to start poorly, you have to wonder how things are going to end up for the rest of the year for them. Next, 11th is the Lions. Coming off a bye again, so there's nothing much doing for them. I think they actually managed to go up one spot because their teams all below them lost apart from the Waratahs, so the Lions are the beneficiaries of other teams dropping points, or at least not picking up any points. So yeah, like I mentioned, with the Lions having the Waratahs away, both sides are under a bit of pressure to get going. So probably the Waratahs more so given their record, but the Lions could certainly use a nice away win here over what's seemingly a pretty weak Waratahs team. I forgot to mention the Rebels have got the Highlanders away, which is tough, although the Sharks did it. So, speaking of the Highlanders, they are in there at 10th. They are down 2 spots. They got a bit of a walloping from the Crusaders. It wasn't quite the same level that the Sunwolves got from the Reds, but it was still pretty convincing. So, it's never nice to lose to your local geographical rival, but that was the case. Going to play the Crusaders away is always a mission. So again, you don't penalise them too hard for that, but the nature of the loss in itself does mean they drop 2 spots. They host the Rebels, like I mentioned, and they will look to seize on that one, because if you're playing any of these 4 teams at the bottom, you probably need to be getting a win at this point. Helicopter flying over my house, if you can hear that. Next, massively up, the Reds up 5 points. Now, let's not get too excited. They only beat the Sunwolves. I'd say that with all due respect, but they absolutely walloped them. So, yeah, man, credit where it's due. To be fair, the competition around them at this point is not that tough. Like, that's their first win. The Highlanders have only had the one win. The Lions have only had the one win. Likewise, the Rebels. And the Rebels only beat the Tars. So it's a kind of all perspective thing about who you've beaten. But, yeah, the fact that the Reds got a massive win sees them jump up. But there's not much between them, the Highlanders, the Lions. There's a bit more between them and the bottom kind of four. But... yeah, it's all much of a muchness between these teams at the moment. But still, good week for the Rebels, and take that for sure. Next, up 2 spots are my Blues. Not quite up into that second row. They're still second from bottom row, but it's another win. It was an away win in Pretoria, which is never an easy place to go. You might be saying, well, 2 wins on the actual log. Are they in the same spot? But they're 7th in terms of their actual points. The concerning thing I look at is the Blues have won 2 games. Who'd they beat? These guys and these guys. Neither of them have won a game. So you kind of, I guess, take it with a bit of a grain of salt as to how good the Blues are at the moment. That they beat the Waratahs pretty convincingly, and they just scraped by the Bulls. Although both of those away wins, so I won't be too hard on them. I'll still give them a bit of credit there. Next are the Jaguares. I mentioned before they're down 2 spots. Mentioned before they're not seeming to be the team they are last year. Maybe lacking a little bit of that like clinical edge about them. They did also have a bit of a squad reshuffle as well, but I think in terms of their potential, it's still there, but they're just not quite meeting it as yet. Down 2 spots, like I mentioned, a tough loss away to the Stormers. Stormers are unbeaten, so there's no disgrace in that for sure. But it wasn't quite close. It was not, 10 points. It's not like they could have won it with a final play, but they could have easily on another. They got a losing bonus point. So, yeah, it's definitely not all doom and gloom, but there's certainly potential for them to do a lot better. Next is the Hurricanes. They're in 6th. Same as last week. And they were on the bye. So they've got the Sunwolves at home. So they need to look at what the Reds did and emulate that, because that's going to become kind of the expectation at this point. If the Reds can do it, there's no reason anybody else can't. So they're coming off the bye. The Sunwolves are coming off a bit of a hiding. They've picked up a couple of injuries. So, yeah, this is a good way to come off the bye for the Hurricanes. I forgot to mention for the Blues, they got the Stormers away next. So that's not going to be easy. In 5th, the Brumbies. A big win from them over the Chiefs. Big away win. They're up 2 spots. They could easily be up more, but they did drop a pretty poor home result prior to that. So, yeah, Brumbies, bit of a surprise package. No one was expecting them to get a result there, but they sure went and did it. They've got the bye now, so it's a good chance for them to reset as well. So, they are looking like the Australian team at the moment, and just based on my own power rankings, they're kind of quite substantially looking better than the rest. Dan McKellar, I'm very much an admirer of the work he is doing there. Next is the Sharks. They are the same as last week despite getting the win. A couple of the teams above them still got wins, so maybe that sees them not maybe move up as much as they would like. But they did beat the Rebels. The Rebels are a pretty weak team, so they're not going to be shooting up. But still, the Sharks, along with the Stormers and maybe even the Jaguares, are looking like sharp teams this year. So the South African Conference is looking pretty strong, which is definitely a good thing after all the question marks when a lot of those South African-based Springboks left for other countries after the World Cup. It's good to see that depth in South African rugby. 3rd is the Crusaders. And you might say maybe they should be a bit higher because they walloped the Highlanders. There's not much between them and the team above them, but they are certainly looking good. They, like the Brumbies, go on to the bye. So a fair few of the teams up the top of the table have got the bye this week. So I think this kind of time, round 5, is a good time to have a bye, especially with some of the niggling injuries that would have been starting to come in. So woe betide the team who has to take on the Crusaders next, because they, apart from that one loss to the Chiefs, are looking pretty good. Speaking of the Chiefs, they surrender their top spot They are down 1 after a disappointing home loss to the Brumbies, but they also get a bye now. So a good chance for them to also reset because, yeah, they just were off. I mean, the Brumbies were good. The Brumbies came at them with maybe an attack plan that we didn't expect. We thought they were maybe a bit one-dimensional, but they certainly came all guns blazing, and the Chiefs just didn't lift for the fight, which was pretty disappointing. So Gatland at this point should have seen enough of his players to really start putting some more pressure on. And yeah, I look forward to seeing them after the bye. The number 1 team. Oh, my nose has just started to run. It's the Stormers. They're undefeated. They are up 1 spot into first. They are the clear number 1 at this point. They went 2 rounds without conceding a point, and then they've got 2 victories on the back of those 2 games. So 4 from 4 is excellent stuff. They face the Blues at home next in Cape Town. So yeah, I pity my Blues. Hopefully they can do a job, but I'm not holding my breath. Yeah, very pleasing to see that the South African team, which did retain so many big guns, continues to be a very good team this year. So those are the power rankings. Sometimes people ask me a few questions about it, like how can this team be above that team? Like I think last week the Jaguares were above the Hurricanes, and it's like, well, the Hurricanes beat them, shouldn't they be above them? It's not quite just one result. Like the Brumbies aren't above the Chiefs, even though they beat the Chiefs. It's based on all the results. Who did they beat? Did they beat them home or away? Did they beat them by much? Did they beat them by only a little? So it's taking it to more things than just the 1v1 results. But yeah, still not perfect, but it's still a little bit of an interesting look to see how things go a bit more dynamically than just the points table. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. Where would you have the teams? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.